Hello and welcome to day 29 of Bondcember. I am Tom.
I'm Joe.
Well, we've run out of films to talk about, so until No Time to Die comes out, I guess we better start wrapping this up then.
Yep. Okay, so this one I think we're doing the worst
Yes,
list.
we are going through all the 20, all the... Now, I should add a caveat here. We are only talking about the 24 official Eon films. Don't worry, we are not going to be talking about Casino Royale because Casino Royale would be this entire list.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, Never Say Never Again is okay, but I don't think really it sort of really falls onto either worst of or best of, and the CBS special is it's a television special. That's it.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is obviously we're going to go through this in sort of obviously your standard clickbaity reverse order and go, hey, here is the things we didn't like about Bond in the following order. So we'll be talking first about henchmen and allies.
Okay.
And then villains and girls, our least favourite Bond moments. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. Our least favourite theme, and then obviously our least favourite Bond movie. So without any further ado, I will go first, and I'm just going to give you my entire list, and we'll sort of discuss your list at the same time. So, in my number 5 slot is Rosa Klebb, who, it's sort of, with 50 years hindsight, it's a little bit of a sort of dated and, questionable representation of LGBT people. In number 4 is Zhao, who is just... Here's a man with diamonds in his face. I cannot say anything better than that. Number 3 is Joe Butcher in License to Kill, who is, the worst part of an otherwise decent Bond movie, in my opinion. Number 2 is Nick Nack, who, again, is the sort of the worst part of an already sort of Bond movie, with possible one or two exceptions. Also, it's just and obviously we spoke about Nick Nack generally, and it's a very he. The problem is with the Man with the Golden Gun is nothing in the Man with the Golden Gun is good. Like and Nick and the actor who plays Nick Nack is doing his best, but oh my god. Yeah, it sort of again falls a little bit into here is an offensive stereotype of little people.
Yeah.
And speaking of offensive stereotypes, my number 1 is Mr. Kid and Mr. Wint. Yeah.
I definitely yikes on that one.
That's a big yikes. And don't get me wrong, like the concept of a gay duo of henchmen. I would love to see Bond just do this completely, like a more recent Bond do this completely straight, and just go, they're gay, they are, romantically entwined henchmen, and one Bond kills one of them, the other one comes after him. Yeah, I can see, but this is like early 1970s representation of gay people, and it's just painful, and it's on top of an already painful film. So that's that's my top 5, and like most of them are, with the exception of Zhao, I just think he's just boring, and there's you could have done something with Zhao, but Zhao is just, he has diamonds in his face, that's it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my worst 5 henchmen.
Yep. My worst starts with 5. I'm gonna give Hervé Villechaize a break and just put him at 5 because he was living out of his truck, or car I should say, like at the time. This was his big break, and he got a nice long career where he was very successful, and he got to he got to live a good life, and I'm happy for him that he got to do this. I just don't like his character in this movie. This is absolutely nothing personal. If was his path to having a happy life, absolutely fantastic. Good for him. I just didn't like this character. He's annoying and a stereotype of little people, and he was used to be a butt of a joke. So, most of the time. So, moving on. Vargas from Thunderball, who gets a lot more talked about him than what he actually does.
Vargas
It's
does
like,
not love.
yeah, he does not love, he does not drink, and what do you do, Vargas? Well, what you do is nothing. What you do is get killed by a harpoon gun. That's all he pretty much does in this movie. And number 3, it's probably not going to be on your list because you probably didn't even know he existed. Scarpine from A View to a Kill. If you do not know who Scarpine is, he is the guy with the little scar on his lip. And he is in the entire movie, and he's in the background, either, around Mayday or, Christopher Walken. And
it's not the guy who's sort of, obviously Max Zorin's dad. I think he's just the other, henchman.
No, he's not the one who is based off of a Nazi scientist. So he's just the guy who is there, and it feels like he should be more important, and he is the final guy Bond essentially fights on the Golden Gate Bridge, but we know next to nothing about him. He doesn't really do anything that has any importance so much. He's just there, and that is the biggest problem. Is he is supposed to be important, and he's not, and it's just, who are you, and why are you here?
Who are you,
Except,
Scuppy?
a guy Bond has to fight. But then we have number 2 is surprise choice, Professor Dent from Dr. No. But the more you think about it, the more it makes sense, because his big power move for killing Bond is putting a tarantula in his room. That is his plan. Tarantula, not even deadly 99% of the time, and you're going to put one of them in there. That's your big plan. And surprise, it failed.
And then you died.
Then you died. And number 1 on my henchman list, I'm not even going to find his name from where he was in the movie, just Goldie in The World Is Not Enough.
Oh, God. I actually managed, we sort of talked about our lists before, obviously doing this, because, we want to make sure there's not too much overlap. I forgot Goldie was in The World Is Not Enough.
Yeah, it just... The World Is Not Enough had a lot of worthless... I mean, I wouldn't say worthless. They do serve a purpose, but they don't really make their mark. And it's just... Goldie is just this annoying guy who gets like 1 or 2 lines. And that's a lot of the henchmen. They look like they're going to be a bigger deal, like Electra King's bodyguard in The World Is Not Enough, who is like, he gets the line, "The bomb was a dud." And that you think he's going to be like have a big fight with Bond later, but he just gets like blown the hell away at the end of the movie, and that's that. But Goldie for being annoying, and I'm sure he is a much better music producer than he is an actor.
Yeah, so I would agree with probably both of those. Right, on to terrible allies, I guess. Do you want to do it in reverse order? So you do your 5 first, and then I do my 5?
Sure thing.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I only have 3 because I was like really racking my brain on this, and like the 3 I had were just like, there's one terrible one, there's just one absolute terrible one, and the rest are just eh. So number 3 on my list is Damien Falco from Die Another Day, just because you get Michael Madsen, you give him this great name, Damien Falco, and you do nothing with him. He's just there to like, are you sure this Bond's a good guy? And it's just like, he's supposed to be the Felix Leiter replacement, but then people reacted poorly to the movie, and so he just disappeared from, the franchise forever.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of a waste of Michael Madsen. That's the only one. And number 2, I have Chuck Lee, who is from A View to a Kill, who's another guy who you forget is in that movie. But he is like the thing that is wrong with most of the allies on the list or in these movies, which is he is obviously a foreign guy, and then he exists to get Bond information and then die.
Yeah.
And he is probably the least memorable character who does that. And that he's just like, the actor does fine, everything's fine, it's just he's just emblematic of the bigger problem. And unfortunately, I have to put him at symbolism.
Yeah.
So there he goes. And number one, Sheriff G.W. Pepper.
Oh boy, I've not. It's almost like he will reappear on my list as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
just terrible, racist Dixie Democrats,
And then appears in a second.
70s stereotype, and for some reason, audiences thought he was funny enough to bring him back.
Oh, it's just,
Because that's what James Bond needed, the Dukes of Hazzard.
yeah. So here's my 4, because again I struggled to get this. Zukovsky, who is great in GoldenEye and then completely wasted in um. Again, the world
Okay.
is not enough. There's a lot of like extraneous people in the world is not enough, and poor
Yeah.
Robbie Coltrane is one of them. It's just like, well,
Yeah.
Robbie, I guess your role in this is to be Russian and then sort of do like one thing at the end of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I spared him from the list because, Robbie Coltrane did a good enough performance
Yeah.
that I'm just like,
absolutely.
okay.
But it
Yeah.
feels like he's gone. It feels like, oh, we're vaguely in the area. I'll just shove Robbie Coltrane in here. He's on speed dial anyway. My number 3, because she is technically an ally as well as a girl, is fucking Mary Goodnight. I'm sorry. Again, it's
Yeah.
just another. It's like this is meant to be another, agent from MI6, and she is, some of the Bond girls obviously are more the sort of the passive damsel in distress. Mary Goodnight is actively obviously trying to get herself captured at various points in this film, because it is just jaw-droppingly silly.
Yeah, I get the feeling she's going to show up later on other lists.
I wonder where it could be. Number 2, mostly because he unfortunately had to replace a much better actor. It's John Cleese's Q, and oh dear, again, it's like, what are you doing, John? This is like, and this is before John Cleese became like, shorthand for arsehole. This is like, Cleese when he actually gave a shit about doing anything that wasn't just for money for paying for his latest divorce. This is like, John, you're meant to be funny. You were in Monty Python, John. Please be funny.
He's given the role of person, like, you are a funny person, so you're going to give this role and you'll make it funny. It's like Richard Pryor in Superman 3.
God. Yeah.
I mean, that's that kind of role, but I left him off because at least his appearances were short. It's not like Pryor in Superman 3 where
Jesus.
he's in the entire movie.
Yeah. And my number 1 is, a particular no surprise, it's Sheriff Pepper, and oh god.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yikes.
Pretty much what Joe said. It's like, I genuinely, I would love to see, because this must have come out of test screenings for obviously, or, Live and Let Die. There must have been somebody going, we need more Sheriff Pepper. Somebody is responsible for this, and I will hunt them down.
I understand Jaws. I do not understand this.
No. Anyway, moving on, and now we go to, obviously, well, we are going to probably go into more detail with each one. So, these are my top 5 worst Bond villains. So, Frank Sanchez. Now, I like License to Kill. I know you were not a big fan of License to Kill.
No.
Which, yeah. But, yeah, in sort of hindsight, Frank Sanchez is more just, he is representative of what Bond is getting revenge on. He just happens to be the guy in charge of it. He never really feels like, much of a villain. It's like, a lot of his henchmen, including obviously Benito del Toro's character, and, a lot of the other more interesting, more idiosyncratic henchmen, feel more like the sort of typical villain than he does, and certainly get more interesting. The best thing about Frank Sanchez is the extremely no fucks given way that they actually finally kill him off, which I think is probably actually one of the better Bond villain deaths. It's like, look, we've tied everything together. It's, it might be your sort of Charles Bronson-esque sort of, revenge plot, but
Mm-hmm.
we're doing it. We're connecting it back. It's that sort of oh shit moment where you've had this Chekhov's gun of a cigarette lighter for the entire film, and now
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
There you go.
there you go.
I left him off my list just because Robert Davi is a good actor.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Again, even with this is the thing I will say about a lot of these ones that we come onto our worst is these people are doing their best in a large case, a number
Yeah.
of cases. They are doing their best. They are putting, even if the script is, and some of the Bond scripts are not great, but they're
No.
doing their best in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
The next one isn't one of them though. It's Renard and Electra King who just,
Mm-hmm.
and I just with those two, it's just it feels like they've got like an idea for a villain, but rather than actually having one strong, solid villain, they've gone, well, let's have this character who will pretend is is sort of our heroine, our Bond girl for the first half, and then go, hey, no, she's actually a villain and she wants revenge, and this guy, she's sort of got Stockholm syndrome from this car, and Robert Carlyle is doing his best, but it's just painful to watch some of this. It's just like,
Yeah. I left Renard off this list. I put Electric King on another list. So
okay.
that's how I went through that. I'm just like I'm okay with Renard. I'm
Yeah,
not so
yeah.
so I just
I mean,
divided it that
yeah.
way.
I mean, I honestly, there is in somewhere between like an amalgam of Renard and Electric King, there is a really good female Bond villain. But it seems
Yeah.
sad that the only real female Bond villainess is, well, apart from obviously the character from Die Another Day, whose name now escapes me, but is the sort of the Gustav
Is it
Graves
like
henchwoman.
okay, Rosamund Pike's character?
Yeah, who's really fun.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, it's like you're actually
Miranda Frost.
Miranda
Okay.
Frost, who's actually evil all along. Yeah, she's fun, but it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Dominic Green, who I feel is like the weakest part of Quantum of Solace. He's like, I feel if you'd had somebody more memorable in Quantum of Solace, I feel, and we spoke about how troubled Quantum of Solace in general was, but
Yeah.
Dominic Green is the weakest part of that film by far. He's just like, and I appreciate what they are trying to do. They are trying to create a villain who is, almost, you basically another Gustav Graves, ironically enough, is this always squeaky clean thing. Number 2, although his appearance is brief, Blofeld in For Your Eyes Only, which is just, oh dear. I know obviously it's not technically, it's Blofeld in inverted commas because they're not allowed to call him Blofeld because, but, oh dear, it's like, and it's sort of emblematic of the war films. Like, this person was a really great, well-rounded character, 2-3 films ago. Now he's being dropped down a flipping chimney like a fucking Looney Tunes cartoon. Which brings me to my number 1, which is poor Christopher Lee. Scaramanga is just... Scaramanga is the worst Bond villain by, 1, because he's not very interesting. 2, because he's...
Yeah.
But 2, because he is in, one of the weakest Bond films, if not the weakest Bond film. And 3, because how dare you waste Christopher Lee, this is your because we don't get, Bond actors coming back to play another Bond villain. That's it. You've used your Christopher Lee. That's it. You have used him. Now you've used him on basically a one-note, very boring character.
I mean, you could have possibly done like a Charles Gray and brought him back as like an ally who gets killed off, but you don't just kill off Christopher Lee willy-nilly like that.
And particularly not in the way that Christopher Lee goes there, which is it's a pity because there's like a lot of the more era villains are memorable. That's the thing. He is easily the least memorable villain of the Moore era by a country mile, but it's just like it's so weak and so boring, and it's like, what is his secret? What is his plan? He wants to use solar energy and sell it to the highest bidder. What's his secret weapon? Oh, it's a gun he makes out of various things he carries around with him. Who's his henchman? Well, it's this one it's this one, person with dwarfism. That's it. That's he is very, and I get that sort of obviously, every Bond villain can't have like a volcano lair, but it's very weak, and it's a complete waste of Christopher Lee.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. You'll see him on my list
Yeah,
too.
I'm not surprised. I'm not remotely surprised by that.
No, no, absolutely not. Let's see. I suppose I should get to my list here. 5 is going to be Kamal Khan from Octopussy, just because, like, he is surrounded by much more or interesting people, or at least Orlov is kind of the usual Russian general who wants to spark war with the West.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's only okay. I mean, I left him off of any list just because he does his job.
Yeah, he's a punch.
He is like with Octopussy, who is, far more interesting than he is, but he is just like, he is set up to be this mastermind who doesn't come off as that way. He is just constantly like one step behind, or like he has something he needs to deal with, and he never comes off like he is in control of this situation, or has ever been in control of this situation.
I mean, hell, I would say Khan. I don't know how much you'd agree that Khan is overshadowed by his henchman, who's a far more interesting character.
And of course we have, and like I said, Octopussy, who is like sort of a gray character, one of the rare gray characters we get in Bond movies. Yeah. And she is far more interesting as a villain and like / hero than Kamal Khan is as a villain, and that's unfortunately what puts him on the list, because I don't think he was poorly played. I don't think there's anything. I think he gets overshadowed.
Yeah, definitely.
But the villain number 4 is Yorgi Koskov from The Living Daylights, who, it was hard for me to put The Living Daylights on here because it is trying to be a more realistic film for many reasons, and it feels like a short story turned into a movie, so it is like, makes sense that the minor characters are more minor, but he is just, they try to blow him up. They have him with this pool of women and stuff like that, and there's just a lot of disconnect between what he's doing and what, they're trying to make him in a Bond movie. So it's just like, I guess if he didn't they tried to play him up as this, supreme mastermind behind all of this, and he is just like so super smart, although they do try to, at least try to hint that he's not as smart as he thinks he is, but it's still, I don't know. I
feel he's an archetype that is done better elsewhere in the series. It's like, your power mad Russian general is like, well, it's James Bond. These are like in every other film.
Yeah. So anyway, 3, and out of respect for Christopher Lee, I'm only putting Scaramanga here, because out of full respect for Christopher Lee, because they don't even give him a backstory until 3/4 of the movie. He is just hanging around in the background. He's just like, he's not that interesting. And then his ultimate plan is, I'm going to develop solar energy, but my heinous plan that they can't stand is he might give it to people, not the West.
Oh, cut off that.
He's going to give it to the Chinese. Oh, no. Like, you could possibly buy it from him and, reverse engineer it for the same price as he's giving it to the Chinese, but there is so much missing from this character. They have, like, one dinner conversation that gets to, that, somewhat, establishes him and his rivalry with Bond and their differences, but it doesn't do nearly enough. It is Christopher Lee as the number 1 assassin in the world against James Bond, and none of it works like it is supposed to on the level it is supposed to. And it's just all around failure. The only thing is, he's Christopher Lee. The man has killed fucking Nazis. I'm not going to mess with him. I'm just going to say he did the best he could with a character that just does not work. Yeah. Anyway,
Moving on.
number two, to very little surprise, Dominic Green, who is uh, again an actor doing the best he can, but it was a character made in a hurry, and he is supposed to stand against. He's just middle management. He's just middle management. That is why he sucks, and that is most of the reason why you just cannot believe him as a any kind of foil for Bond. The foil for Bond in this movie is the system, and he is just a character who just happens to be the villain for this movie, and just he does not work as this on any level as a credible threat, even with an axe in an exploding hotel. So, on that note, my number one is going to be, might be a surprise. I don't know. It is Blofeld from Spectre.
Oh, oh, that is
Yeah.
surprising. Yeah, okay, okay. Because, okay, I'm really
it's-
intrigued to hear your reasoning because I would have put him like. Thing is, yeah. So Blofeld Inspector for me just feels like a complete middle tier. You know, there are 2 to 3 actors who play Blofeld better than Charles Christopher Waltz, and I love Christopher Waltz as an actor, but it's just like it is the one element of of the Craig era, apart from obviously because Quantum of Solace, which I feel we rather unfairly castigate, that feels like a complete miscast. It's genuinely, yeah. I don't know what it is. There's something about Waltz's performance that just does not work for me. You know, particularly in hindsight.
It is just my. I had expectations for this. That's my biggest reason. It's like the worst thing you could ever have for anything is expectations that are not met, and especially high expectations, because Christoph Waltz is a great actor when he is, you know, with Quentin Tarantino. I mean, otherwise he can be good. He can be the villain from the Green Hornet or the villain from the Three Musketeers movie directed, you know, by Paul W.S. Anderson.
Oh God.
Yeah, but in this one, it's a note. Whatever note he had does not play here. Like, they have ideas. Like, I have said it in the review. Like, Spectre is the best Bond movie on paper. But you don't, you know, make movies on paper. You make them on film. But...
yeah, it just...
it starts off so well. He's in the shadows, and then you hear his voice, and it's perfectly threatened. And then the moment you see his face, and then he looks up, and then he goes, cuckoo, cuckoo. And then it's just like, it all starts to unravel.
Those bird noises,
and
those damn bird
every
noises.
step it just doesn't work. Like coming in and showing him this meteor piece, and it's missing like something of grandeur.
Yeah.
It's and then we have the scene that's supposed to be like the Goldfinger laser scene, except he's an evil dentist now, and everything about this.
Shit, it's
like,
secretly a Django Unchained sequel.
And I can see it is supposed to work, but none of it does. And then we have the final sequence, which we didn't. I don't think we talked about it in the movie.
I don't think we did, because at that point we'd be going on for about an hour and a half, and it's like,
Yeah. So it leads up to MI6, and it's supposed to be this thread that ties everything together. And like Blofeld is supposed to be this mastermind, and this is his ultimate trap against James Bond, and like they hedge bets, which causes it all to fail. Like, I get why they do it, because it's the change in character in James Bond. I understand that, but it is at the, you know, at the other end of making the villain just completely ineffective.
And then
because
yeah,
it's like we want to have the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but we don't want to do the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So it just everything after, you know, the first meeting just completely fails, and because I had high expectations, because it wants to be the Bond movie, I have to put him here.
No, absolutely. It is just it is, if it was a lower stakes film, if they had, or if they had done what they did with Blofeld in, the Connery things, and had, Christopher Waltz, appearing for 5 minutes whilst we introduce another villain, great. Because I think, the problem is with Blofeld is he is built up and built up and built up to, you only live twice, and then there he is, there's Blofeld, rather than going, here's Blofeld. You know who he is. You're a James Bond fan. You know what he is. You know what he does. You notice he hasn't got, a cap or a scar yet, so obviously something's going to happen to get the cat and the scar. And
Yeah.
and then he goes down like a complete sucker at the end of Spectre. It's like, oh, this is the mastermind? And it's like, okay, obviously I appreciate that. Obviously, we're missing half of the puzzle, and Christopher Waltz might be amazing in No Time to Die, but that film is not out, and we don't know when it's coming out. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see with that.
Okay.
So, moving on now, the girls. Obviously, we should say, for the question of thing, we are not ranking them on our particular attraction to them. We are going, these are as characters, because that would be really weird if we did, because you're married and
I'm Yeah, this is not hot or not. This is
this is what do we think of them as characters, and I'll let you go again.
Okay. So number 5, Stacey Sutton from A View to a Kill. I thought I would have her higher, but it's just like she's such a non-presence. I forgot. Like a lot of like the excess characters in A View to a Kill, I forgot they were there, and it's just like the only reason is convenient. So unfortunately for the poor actress who played her, she thought it was going to be her big break. She got very little out of this afterwards, and she did not like working with Roger Moore. Nobody much liked working on this movie, so it's just like, and she is a non-presence. Her character is kind of like, listen up, Buster, and stuff like that, American, that they try to do in these Bond movies that doesn't quite scan in most of them. But yeah, number 5. Number 4 is going to be Rosie from Live and Let Die, who gets on this list because she is too obvious. It's a very weird thing to explain, but you can tell right from the get-go that she works for the villains.
Yeah.
And they're trying to play it off like she's this new agent. And like you can see right through everything she does, and in the end she just gets this weak bit of a death, and it's
and it's particularly unfortunate because she is the first obviously black Bond girl of color. That's like, this is what we go with our first essentially non-European Bond girl. Or non.
And it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I will leave most of the actors and characters from Live and Let Die off this list because they are really fun characters and they are fairly interesting, even if I don't quite like the movie.
Oh god, absolutely. This is the thing. As I think we said with Live and Let Die, it is white people making a film about black people, and considering all of that,
yes,
it's remarkably,
it's remarkable that anything from that movie was salvageable, and that so much of it is, and that like the black actors in that movie take what they are given and they run with it.
Yeah,
it's just accept this one.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, the flaws are too obvious for it.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway,
moving on. Number 3, I probably should have switched turns, Stacey Sutton, but Tiffany Case from Diamonds Are Forever. She is, like, I could see where they are going with it. Like, similar to Octopussy, having this gray character who is playing both sides and eventually turns on the good side. But the character is just this annoying American... like I said, listen up here, Buster. I'm not your ordinary girl, and I'm not going to be this passive, you know, Bond girl that you're used to. But it comes off as annoying, and it just eventually it grates on you for most of the movie, and I just do not like her in this movie. So there's that. That's number 2 is Electra King. So that's where I'm putting Electra King, just because again, I can see where they were going. Yeah. Like this character who turns from being a, kidnapped victim who warms to her captor, Stockholm Syndrome, and then becomes the mastermind with her power on top of it. But it does not work on the flip to mastermind. If Renard had still stayed like the mastermind and she wasn't trying to play it off like that, then that might have worked, but there is something juvenile in the performance or in the way it's written. I do not want to write off Sophie Marceau, who is a very good actress, and she has had a long and fruitful career, but this performance does not work. She is too juvenile for what she is doing. She sounds like she is a teenager trying to play villain. Yeah. And there is a certain truth to that with the Stockholm Syndrome. Maybe it takes away her, there's a part of her maturity missing because when she was a teenager, this happened to her. But it does not work here. And it absolutely does not work when they do the heel turn and she is, wahaha, the great villain all along. It just falls flat. And, for that reason, it is here.
Yeah, and then, to be honest, that sort of twist, villain thing is done a lot better with Vesper. Obviously, it's on a much smaller scale, but the oh shit, she's actually working for the bad guy all along thing is done much better in 10 minutes. 10
and
minutes
plus the relationship is so much better.
Yeah.
So number 1, gonna be a surprise to nobody. Good Night.
Oh god. Oh, she's on my list.
Yeah. Oh, I know she's on your list. Just a completely. I don't know what it is about British people writing American characters like that. I don't. Is Miss Goodnight supposed to be American? I forget. But
I think British. I think she's going to be. I don't know.
She's British, but they're supposed to write. They're writing these like the modern thing would be like strong, independent woman, but that's not quite it. It's just like these mousy characters who are street smart, and they don't act like the typical woman. But the problem is they're written dumb in these movies.
Yeah.
Like Tiffany Case is just supposed to be this. It's hard to describe, but they're supposed to be, street smart, but you don't even get the belief that they're street smart. Especially Miss Goodnight, who just like seems to be actively impeding every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean,
and just seems to be in the way.
I could imagine, like, genuinely enough, if she was revealed as a twist villain and like all this bumbling sort of ineptitude was actually like, oh shit, she's been working for Scaramanga all along, and this is a deliberate act, and she's been deliberately messing up to get Bond exactly where she wants him. That would have been like, that would have been fun, a fun twist.
Nope, she's just dumb, and
unfortunately,
for the extreme level of dumb, I have to put her number 1.
Yep. So let's go through my list. So, number 5 is Holly Goodhead, who I put him basically because, oh my god, the Roger Moore era and its horrible, terrible, sexual puns. For this is where that thing for Austin Powers comes from, and it's like, really, otherwise, sort of like, she's the weakest thing in Moonraker. I think the rest of Moonraker is actually fun, and it's like, Bond's got to have a love interest when his love interest is clearly science.
I left most of Moonraker
Yeah.
off because it's terrible in a fun way. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought about Lois Chiles
Yeah.
as or Childs on the list, but I
Mm.
decided against it because
Yeah.
she wasn't bad enough. Like she wasn't Stacy Sutton bad.
Oh god. Number 4 is Kissy Suzuki, who is. I feel like again it's the sort of okay. This is like the first non-basic European Bond girl. She marries him and then dies. It's like okay.
Yeah.
Very again would have been nice if we'd seen if the film hadn't gone. Well, we're married now and. Now it's time for you to die at like the hands of a ninja. Okay. Yeah, again, it's a waste of a waste of an otherwise actually fairly solid character, and it's like we've obviously seen Bond married properly elsewhere in the series, and that actually really affects him. And it's like here she just feels like a tool to push the plot along, and it's like really oh dear. Stacey Sutton is at number 3 for me for pretty much the same reasons you got. She is just. What is she doing here? It's like, again, she feels like, and the thing is, what I will say with, A View to a Kill is, where it's like, in terms of its character development, it's just bloated. It's like, why is she here? What is she doing here? She basically is there to sort of give Bond, an in to sort of, to go up against Max Zorin, but otherwise it's just, what are you doing? Not Bibby Doll because yikes.
Yeah.
All I've written next to her is just the words yikes in capital letters. Yeah, it's like nearly 50-year-old Roger Moore having a 22-year-old woman crush on him is just yikes.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's just
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's just like it's one of those things you just go. You just like, this would never fly in like a because I was reading sort of general thing, and obviously quite recently this interview with Daniel Craig resurfaced when he was talking about the Italian lady in
Spectre.
Yeah, Inspector, who's actually
I remember the character's name, or not the character's name, but I remember it's like Maria Bello or something like that.
And he was like going, she's just was like described in like
Monica Bellucci. Sorry,
Monica Bellucci. Anyway,
their characters is Lucia.
Anyway, but yeah, it was like this conversation that I think somebody asked Craig, what do you think about acting against an older woman? It's like. And Craig turns around to them, and Daniel Craig, in his usual inimitable style, says, "She's 2 years older than me. She's not an older woman. She's my age." And it's like, I feel like, Bibby Doll is sort of the opposite end of that. It's like, this is really creepy, and it's actually I'm quite happy that sort of, this is an outlier in the Bond series, that, there haven't been, many Bibby Dolls in the Bond series. And my number 1 is it's good night. Good night. It's like, oh god. Oh.
All right. Good night. Good night.
Good night. Good night. Off you go. So we will eventually. So now we're going to move on to the worst moments of Bond, which spoilers. Roger Moore will figure heavily on this list, I'm afraid. Do you want to go first, Joe? Or should I go? I'll go first if you want.
Roger Moore doesn't feature as prominently, but he does definitely feature. But my 5th is going to be the climax of Quantum of Solace. Just as I don't want to be the person who like cheats on the moments in like every action scene from every Bond movie. But if I was going to pick something that was emblematic of Quantum of Solace problems, it is the climax with the heavy editing. There is extensive use of CGI flames. I imagine and they were poorly done. I imagine because they were in a hurry. And against a villain that isn't very threatening. And it just, all of it is just noise and, flames and nonsense. And eventually it pukes out the end of the movie. And I'm just putting it as a symbol of the all of the action sequences in
Absolutely, yeah.
Quantum of Solace.
Yeah, the
Just
nausea-inducing section.
salad shooter editing,
Yeah.
and
Oh god,
it's
yeah.
all headache inducing. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I would. And I think he's also, if I'm not mistaken, is Dominic Green the only Bond villain who dies off screen?
I'm not sure about that.
I feel he is. I feel he is because I'm pretty sure Bond usually dispatches them otherwise.
At least I get the feel they were trying to make an counterculture Bond movie, so it makes sense that the villain is kind of dies pathetically, and he's a kind of a worthless cog in the middle of things. But
Yeah.
it just, like I said with the villain thing, it does not pull it off in any reasonable way. Like Le Chiffre is a cog middle manager who thinks he's bigger than he is,
Yeah.
and he is played so much better. It is so much more well done.
Yeah.
But so anyway, number 4 is Bond going into Severine's shower in Skyfall, and I didn't think I would put a worst thing anything in Skyfall, but
Yeah.
this really bothered me because it is. Severine is a person who was sold into sex slavery when she is little, and that comes with a variety of psychological, physiological issues, a whole load of PTSD, and it's just like Bond just walks into the shower and when she's not expecting it, and it's played off like it's supposed to be this romantic scene, and it's like she would be freaking out, she would be having harsh breaths, and she would be in the corner hyperventilating.
Yeah.
This is not what happens when you do this, Bond.
Yeah.
It doesn't. This is not Bond's. My penis will fix everything. No.
No, if you want a good example of this scene done well, we only have to go back 2 films to go. The Vesper Lynn sequence with the hands. That is supremely. If Bond had done something, as I said, I think it is one of the few scenes in Skyfall where it goes, it sort of tries, it goes back into sort of the bad old days of Bond. If it had been a more tender sort of, or something like that, I could see that working. But it's the one moment in the film where it goes, yikes.
Yeah. And number 3 is the return of Sheriff Pepper in The Man with the Golden Gun, because there is nothing we needed more of than Sheriff Pepper. And he is in Thailand, and we are just sitting here. Okay, so, I don't know how much more I need to explain it. We have a racist sheriff in Thailand in a movie he has nothing to do with.
Yeah, it's just like, oh dear. It's just like...
Yeah.
I remember...
Just why?
I think if I remember correctly, I think I was tweeting to you or messaging you when I was watching that, and it was just like, I think I had to go away and sort of stand away from my computer for the moment, because it was just like, oh god, he's back. What is he doing? No,
so
I agree.
This probably has the least explanation of, Anyway, number 2, James Bond turning Japanese.
Oh god.
And I think the only reason I did Kissy, was left off the list was because I put all of this into one thing, which is right here, which is James Bond turning Japanese, where they give him terrible plastic surgery, and then we have Sean Connery saying, "Arigato gozaimasu."
I mean, we are recording this. I think today. We're just recording this at the beginning of December. Roald Dahl's family is literally, I think today, or his estate probably apologized for him being massively anti-Semitic. So, I think we could just add being massively racist in general.
Yeah, it is like. I considered putting the in Japan men come first and women come second, but this one is like way worse. This is way up there, and we have just given a wife who does nothing and dies, and just all of this. Why? It is just this big I know why in the plot it is to give him a disguise now that he is dead and to hide out from other people. But this is like the worst disguise
Yeah.
in the world, and they know he's there.
It's like,
And
I don't think anyone's looking at like 6 foot, really obviously Scottish Sean Connery going, yeah, he could really pass for Japanese.
again, yikes.
Yikes.
But number one, the most yikes. Surprise! I have two moments from Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh,
It's
God.
James Bond throwing a poor kid into the river.
Oh, Jesus.
It is emblematic of so much of what is wrong with the Man with the Golden Gun, where it's just like people reacted poorly to Moore in Live and Let Die as the nice. He's too nice. He is too gentlemanly. So they tried to give him a dark edge. So
He throws him into the river.
he gives the woman who is under, Scaramanga's thumb, just like he bends her elbow back, and it's just like she is a character who does not deserve this. She is, again, another abuse victim who James Bond is just taking poorly and then is disposed of. But, so they try to give him this darker edge. So part of it is Roger Moore is on this boat. He is trying to make it work. So there's this poor kid trying to sell him an elephant. And he's not having anything. But listen, I'll give you all of this money if you make this motorboat go. And so he just flips one thing and it goes. And it's just like, okay, now give me the money. What James Bond does, he throws this homeless kid into a river. It's like, well, fuck you too. It is just emblematic of how much the Man with the Golden Gun did not give a shit.
We've got two moments with the Man with the Golden Gun.
It's hero throws homeless kids into the river after promising them money.
Yeah.
And, the kid is a little bit of a jackass. He's poor, he's living on the street, he has to be... I will give him an excuse. I am not going to give James Bond an excuse here.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
I mean, that's a perfect metaphor for the Man with the Golden Gun in general, sort of throwing homeless kids into the river after promising them money. And it's like, it promised me a good film with Christopher Lee and like a golden gun, and we get this and racist hit sheriff man.
And giving people solar energy is bad, actually.
So let's get ready on my worst 5 moments of all time. So number 5, and I've just written here all of Roger Moore's terrible puns. Just like I know like James Bond making quippy one-liners is like a thing, and I get it's a thing, and I get that it's particularly, but the Roger Moore era just goes. You know how like Bond was very quippy. Sean Connery was really quippy, and made really things like shocking, simply shocking, and sort of other appropriate things because this man is a psychopath.
Yeah.
Roger Moore's Bond is not a psychopath. He's a nice bloke who just makes terrible dad joke level puns.
And since I'm a dad, I go with those, but...
Yes, but you're not meant to be like the coolest super agent in like the fucking...
No.
Number 4 is just Blofeld getting jumped down a chimney again.
Yeah.
It is just like, in this otherwise reasonably, downbeat, reasonably realistic, we have this fucking Looney Tunes moment where Blofeld gets, hooked up by a helicopter under his wheelchair and just dumped into a chimney. It's like, where is this? Why is this tacked on to for your eyes only, which is otherwise a solid if unexciting solid entry, but a solid realistic entry. With like,
and then it's just goofy and it has lines like, "I'll buy you a delicatessen." Which is one of my favorite terrible lines from this series.
Yeah, it just genuinely, and like, and I get that Bond is occasionally a bit of a tonal mess, but this is like having a cartoon short attached to the front of like an Oscar bait movie. It's just like, hang on a minute, is this the same film? Number 3 is Roger Moore Circus, which I just think speaks for itself.
Yeah.
It's just like, don't get me wrong. Like I think we've spoken about each Bond being a particular thing in each Bond, and Roger Moore is the fun Bond, but it is just like logistically it makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
It is the silliest image in the entire Bond series. It's just stupid. It's like I get that. Okay, occasionally Bond has to think with his wits and disguise himself, and it's Bond in a clown outfit trying to defuse a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
No.
I considered it. It was no. It's my unofficial number 6.
Yeah. It's just like it's just silly, and it's like, and it's actually the problem. One of the other big problems with Octopus is just like the tonal mess that is Octopus. A film that has nuclear bombs threatening most of Berlin, whilst Roger Moore tries to convince people it's a bomb while dressed as a clown. Number 2 is Sean Connery being Japanese.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm glad we had that psychic connection.
Solidarity. We both think that this is horribly racist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just genuinely like and again, it's sort of a weird thing that like this and Live and Let Die are otherwise reasonably alright on the cultural aspect, apart from this whatever this is. This and people speaking like they're in a blaxploitation film, which it basically is. Which leaves us to actually at the moment I think where the entire sort of Roger Moore era just completely jumps the shark. It is the Beach Boys moment. It is the moment where just
I probably should have put that on my list. I'm gonna admit that.
Yeah, that's your unofficial number. It just genuinely, it is like, this is the moment that Bond, like the Beach Boys, just becomes a heritage act, and it's like, what am I watching? This used, and I think we joked at the time that sort of, the moment you get surfing in a James Bond film, or any sort of surfing, or travel via board. I'm expecting what will happen in No Time to Die is Bond will use a skateboard for part of this, and we'll both look at each other and go, look, see, he's on a board again. That's it. The series.
It's time when a Bond has to go.
Or longboarding. It's like, yeah, that's when that's the moment a Bond movie goes, why are you on a snowboard? Why is the Beach Boys playing? Why is it a cover version of the Beach Boys? Because you clearly don't have enough money to actually get the original track. What is going on? What am I looking at?
Yeah. In hindsight, it should have been. It's just like there are too many things that like the climax of Quantum of Solace. I need to put something that like acknowledged the editing of Quantum of Solace was terrible, and like Bond going into Submarine Shower, that just rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And then the other things were just like, oh boy. But
yikes.
Yeah, as far as things that have no place in this franchise, absolutely. Bond snowboarding to the Beach Boys.
Yeah, it's. Oh. Right.
So, do you want to go on to the songs now?
Yeah, let's do the songs. So, my number 5 is License to Kill, and a lot of the, I'm going to be honest here, a lot of the songs that are on this are, I cannot remember what this goes like. It bores me. Or it's or in the case of like the top 2, they are genuinely bad pieces of music. So my number 5 is License to Kill, and I did not remember this song at all. Like, I've got, some of the ones on my best of list are now permanently stuck on my, most played tracks on my streaming service of choice. But these ones, I cannot remember what fucking License to Kill goes. I could not hum it for you. I think it's done by a soul singer, and I think it has like a synth.
Gladys Knight.
I think it has a synth part in it at some point. I can't remember anything about it. Same thing with my number 4, which is All Time High, which again I remember nothing about.
Oh my god, we are going to have a surprise for you on the best list.
Oh,
it's going to be weird. You'll find out.
Absolutely fine. That's fine. Number 3 for Your Eyes Only, which I just find really mawkish, and the Bond, and we'll obviously come on to this more when we talk about our favourite ones, but it just has no energy to it at all. It's like, and I get that it's going for a more realistic tone, and I guess that it's more downbeat, and it's like, yeah, but if you're gonna set this in Greece, why not just have like Greek, folk music, a more grounded, appropriate piece of music. You don't have to have the Bond theme. Yes, it's a construct that goes at the beginning of each film, but we can do it without one. It's okay. It's a solid. It's just dull, and it's unfortunately got stuck in my head, which is really annoying actually now. Now we get to the two really bad ones, and Lulu, sorry, but The Man with the Golden Gun is just dreadful piece of music. It just it's trying to be about 5 things at once, and the lyrics are bad, and it just genuinely, it's sort of this raucous mess of a guitar piece, and it's like, no, please, no. It's another thing that's wrong with The Man with the Golden Gun. But I think you know what my number 1 is going to be.
Yep.
Yeah, my number 1 is Sam Smith's Writing on the Wall. I'm sorry, it's just, it's the same problem as For Your Eyes Only, except magnified about 5 times over. It is horrible. It is just, and I hate to use this word, and I hate to sort of describe it as such, because I don't want this to come off. It is so wet. It is, it is that sort of mushy, landfill indie that we got sort of the beginning of the late sort of 2000s, early 2010s. It's like, I'm sorry, don't get me wrong, I know a Bond, obviously the Bond films since the Bond songs, since the sort of, the particularly in the Craig era, become more, downbeat or more sort of, but have some energy. Don't sound like, something that people listen to break up to. Because it does. It sounds like a fucking breakup song.
Yeah.
It sounds like a breakup. I could imagine this, over, particularly as it's like, it doesn't really, fit. It doesn't thematically fit the film. It's like, I could understand if this ended with, Blofeld getting away and Lea Seydoux' character dead, but it doesn't. It ends on a fairly triumphant point, and the one thing I will say in Writing for the Wall's favour is when it is actually the symphonic version, when it is, the version, where they use the theme in the score, it's really good.
Yeah, I will say, to its credit, that the music is very good. The orchestral is lush and nice.
Unfortunately, it's attached to, this song, which, I don't have any. I'm sorry, I with at least some of them, I have something good to say. I have nothing good to say about this.
Absolutely.
And given what could have been there, it's even more of a problem for me.
Yeah. For my list, it is going to be mostly I had to do a different standard. Like, there is only one I dislike. I think we know what it is.
Yeah, it's.
There's one I actively dislike, and the rest are, I had to go by which ones did I never want to hear again.
Oh boy.
That I've been fine with, but I never want to hear again. Number 5 is From Russia with Love. With apology. I think it's used poorly in the movie. It's just on a radio. They didn't have stuff together. I'm not gonna get on their case about it.
Yeah.
You hear it on the radio once, and it's such a slow, relaxed song that I get bored listening to it, and I kind of skip it when it shows up when I'm listening to the Best of Bond playlists. Number 4, For Your Eyes Only. It is the most adult contemporary, just flat line of a song. I will cop to liking it because there's a part of my taste that is good taste, and then there's the other part of me that it just likes terrible things. And I do like some adult contemporary cheese, but this goes a little too far, and especially with the music video that has actually Sheena Easton. Sheena Easton, if you are listening, you don't need me to talk shit about you. You are absolutely a wonderful performer. You are legend. you can feel free to like just shit on me all you like. This song is just a little bit too much adult contemporary, and it's doesn't work for the movie it's on.
Yeah.
Um, Number 3, this is mostly just because I don't want to hear it ever again, is Die Another Day. I don't actually hate this song. I don't actually think it's bad. It's just like when we were going into the Pierce Brosnan era, we got media overhype, and we had to listen to all of these songs 1,000 times during the 90s, because this was still a time when the music industry was making gigantic bank, and like all of this stuff was everywhere. And especially this was still when Madonna was relevant. It was just before she became irrelevant. So, this song was everywhere, and just eventually it's like too much. I don't care if I don't care if the lyrics are too cheesy. Sigmund Freud analyzed this or whatever, and it's used sort of well in the opening, where it's mostly the opening is a part of the movie, which is what they try to do. That's why it kind of more or less works, is because they're doing something weird, but still, I never want to hear it again. Which brings me to number 2, which is Tomorrow Never Dies, which is a movie that was forced upon David Arnold and the film because the producers, they wanted this was the song. And I don't actually hate it. I just don't want to ever hear it again. And like, the way the people, like, it wasn't used well in the movie itself. It was in the open, and then they used the song for the credits, Surrender.
The Katie Lang song, which was, I think we mentioned obviously at the time, it was like, this was a fairly hasty replacement, because the score still uses the obviously the Surrender theme throughout the rest of the film.
So, it's kind of a song nobody wanted. I don't think it's really a particularly bad song at all. It's just, it's in its corner. Nobody wanted it, and I never want to hear it again. And, that's that. And number 1, Writings on the Wall. No big surprise here. I mean, the reaction is my wife was watching the Oscars with me when it came on, and it's just like, oh, that music's nice. And I told her, just wait. And then Sam Smith started singing, and then she went, what the hell? Like, the moment he starts, there is something critically wrong with this film. Or not the film, but the song.
Yeah. And it's which is fun,
It is just, there is... It does not belong in this world. It does not belong with this. The lyrics do not belong with this music. The singing does not belong here. It's just, it does not work. It is a critical failure of a song, and that's why it's here. Yeah. It is the one Bond theme that I think is failure. I actually think The Man with the Golden Gun is catchy, but I will grant it's catchy in a generic pop sort of way. But this is the one that does not work.
Yeah, absolutely. And hello, Tom York, if you are listening. We consider your song the real theme.
Yep.
So, this leaves us really with our favourite Bond films. So, Joe, if you would...
The worst ones, I should say.
Our least favourite Bond films. These are the films we hate to love and love to hate, and would rather, frankly, in some cases, would happily never see again.
Yep. Number 5, you're not going to like this. I had a long debate with myself, because there are a lot of 2.5-star films on here that I would like. Okay, I didn't actively dislike them, but I don't think they're good movies, and one of them had to be on the list. So the one I put on the list is the one I had the worst reaction to, which is License to Kill.
Yeah, which is fine. I understand your issue, your views of this film.
It is not a Bond movie. It is a late 80s, like, drug kingpin revenge crime film. And on that level, it's not particularly a good one. It is. I can see the steps being taken before they happen, and I know there are a couple good twists, like the dealer, the Chinese dealers that Sanchez are working with are actually American agents, and Bond, you are fucking blowing this, and Bond kind of hands them over to him as part of his revenge, and that is a good twist. That is a good part of this movie, but the rest is like such generic 80s, and it does not belong in the James Bond world. It just does not fit. And then even if it did, and parts of it do work, and you have good henchmen, you have a good villain, it has the Reverend Butcher stuff that just comes out of nowhere, and it does not fit anything, and they force it into the movie so hard, and it's such tonal whiplash that I had to put License to Kill on number 5.
Yeah,
I don't actually think it's that bad. The rest of the movies are that bad. So, number 4, The World Is Not Enough. One I originally liked, but once you grow up, you figure out there's what you want the movie to do, what the movie wants to do, and what it does. And the difference between these two is the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Because there's very little chemistry between Bond and Electra King that would make their relationship any sort of interesting. The villain is mostly separated from everybody else, so he doesn't get to be he just gets to deliver monologues. That's all he gets to do and look threatening. But when he actually does anything, it doesn't work. Even with his, gimmick that he doesn't feel pain.
Yeah, the action set pieces are just the wrong things at the wrong time in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I think we've agreed.
They are interesting, but they don't have the same energy. It's directed by the guy who did the Up documentaries, and he doesn't have a real sense of action, set piece, and energy, and it comes off as a little academic. It's like, okay, this is how. It is a video on how you do these.
Yeah, it's shot like a
basically.
Yeah, it's shot like a making of documentary in places. To be honest,
something like that.
Yeah.
So it's the one I keep wanting to be better, but it never is. So number 3 is Diamonds Are Forever, which is this goofy nothing of a film that came after, like, the film that has the greatest dramatic weight of all the Bond movies. And it probably would have just slid under as mediocre if it was in the Connery era and it was dumped between, like, You Only Live Twice and Thunderball or something like that. But here, and especially that they acknowledge that, to a certain extent, that Bond is going after Blofeld specifically for revenge at the beginning of the movie, and then it just turns into this Las Vegas show. And this never-ending pile of cheese and the 70s.
Yeah,
this is definitely where the 70s began, because you have it's just this there's this, like, wood paneling part of the 70s is what I call it. Where everything that is terrible, where everything doesn't look right, and everybody is just like this weird subsection of trying to be a character and not working. And there's this lack of real anything. Like, it takes place in Las Vegas, so you have these shows, and you get maybe like one good look at this show where there are a bunch of women floating around, but it's used as backdrop, and it's not even in a particularly convincing scene. You get, like, scenes where this was apparently a Las Vegas show where a woman taken from Africa is transformed into a gorilla, and it's just like, okay, not only is this super racist, but this is like a sucky event you put in the corner of a state fair that has been there for 2 decades, but they can't get rid of it because people will still pay for it.
It's the 1970s. I'm not entirely convinced people are going to fall for lady turning into gorilla anymore, mate.
It's cheesy. It's stupid. I mean, Sean Connery, he's Sean Connery, James Bond, and that's why people gave it a positive review. But it is the professor who, let's put it this way, it is the professor who shouts, "It's just a jump to the left" from Rocky Horror Picture Show as Blofeld. That is the fault. That explains this movie.
Should have tucked your knees
Okay.
in tight.
So number 2, A View to a Kill.
Oh boy.
Yep. Like, almost nothing in this movie works. Like, nobody wanted to make it. Nobody really had any fun making it. Nobody liked anybody making it. And you can tell. It spends like a quarter to a third of its time at looking at horses.
There's altogether too much horse in this.
It wastes the presence of almost anybody who has screen presence, like Christopher Walken. Like, this was before he became like kind of a walking joke, and then he ran with the walking joke until actually it's the most awesome thing in the world.
Yeah.
But he's still an Oscar winner. He still has screen presence, but he's supposed to be this massive genius, but it doesn't scan.
Yeah.
And then you have Mayday, who is, she has a presence, but she doesn't really do a whole lot, and she doesn't really have any chemistry with anyone in this movie, which is sad because she had potential.
Absolutely,
and then we've already talked the Bond woman here, who is a nothing presence. And then we have all these extraneous characters like Jenny Flex. Allison Duty, I'm glad this was your springboard to being in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Fantastic. Great for you. Your character was extraneous in this movie. Then you have Scarpine, who is like guy who does things. And then you have the, doctor who is based on Mengele.
Yeah.
There's just so much in this movie, but it doesn't work. And
it's just
it's
so many characters rattling around.
It's a waste of a lot of things in this movie, and it just turns into this fart of a nothing. And the only reason the Golden Gate Bridge thing works is like, I'm scared of heights. I'm going to be scared at whatever height you throw at me. Mm-hmm. So it's, God, this movie just sucks. And it's just like, and, not to get too political, but we had Dianne Feinstein, who has just been like this completely ineffective Democratic leader at the moment. And you can just lead us back right to the 1980s, where they gave them full access to when she was the mayor of San Francisco. And she was so happy that, we got a Bond movie here. And it's just like, you make your government officials look bad. Like, your cops they're the Keystone cops who are just there to get wrecked for laughs.
Yeah.
And you have none of it really shows the beauty of San Francisco or how wonderful of a city San Francisco is. Because I've been there. It's a great city, if way too expensive to live in. But you wouldn't get that from anything except the final sequence in the film. And you have this car chase where Bond gets on this fire truck, and it has ideas, but none of it works. This is like not even in the top 20 to top 50 of chase scenes in San Francisco.
Yeah, and that's a far from exclusive club.
Yeah, that is a very specific list, and you're not even on it.
Yeah.
So, I don't think I'm going to be surprising anybody with my number one, which is The Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh, there's a surprise.
No. It is... Again, expectations are in play. It is about Christopher Lee as the greatest assassin in the world against James Bond, and they're pitted against each other, but there are, like, no stakes between them. It is even the opening thing where they send a 007 bullet was sent by somebody else to put James Bond into action. It is not... He didn't do this. And, Scaramanga is such a casual villain for 3/4 of the movie that he doesn't have this villainous, presence over the movie. Even though he's played by Christopher Lee, who Dracula goddamn has a presence.
Yeah.
But we have Goodnight, who is the worst Bond girl. We have Sheriff Pepper, who has made our list multiple times here. We have them trying to make Roger Moore, a darker James Bond, and it does not work at all. And we have, the bad Bond girl, who is just simply an abuse victim who needs rescuing, and nobody helps her. And we have Knick Knack, who is an annoying nothing of a henchman. It's all... I mean, I can count what I liked on 2 fingers. I think the one is the set of the Queen Elizabeth that is just turned around. That's kind of neat. And I didn't mind the Lulu theme. But you obviously didn't.
Yeah, I'm not...
You obviously did mind.
I did mind the Lulu, I'm sorry.
You're quite a bit. And that's about... I mean, okay, maybe 3, because there's like one of the greatest stunts ever filmed, but it is this thing that they have to go out of their way in a car chase to go into, and it was a nothing of a car chase, and there was just this moment where, like, it's just placed in a movie, and they even have to ruin it with a slide whistle on the soundtrack, which everybody involved with it regrets doing. So there's very little in this movie that goes untainted, and it's just an awful movie all around. Absolutely D- of a film. There it is. That's what I got.
Yeah. Let's go through my number 5, because I think, again, there's going to be, surprisingly enough, there might be quite a lot of duplication in this. My number 5 is Octopussy.
Okay.
And that is mostly because it is where, the rot really starts to set in with Roger Moore. It's just... By Octopussy, it is starting to feel very tired. We're getting to the early 80s. We've had, obviously, Never Say Never Again go, that Sean Connery, who is 2 years younger than Roger Moore, can still do all this action shit and, look really good while doing it, and ride a fucking horse off a castle, and and play video games against Emil Largo. And you're Roger Moore, and it's just like, Roger, you just look tired, you look unhappy being here. You're acting against people who are with Bond girls who are 15, 20, 30 years younger than you. You look tired. Everything about Octopussy just feels, with the possible exception of the sort of the Russian characters and members of obviously Octopussy's sort of circus, just feel tired. The whole thing just feels exhausted, and obviously it comes to a film that you without any spoilers will be later on in this, which is sort of A View to a Kill, which is just Bond just giving up in slow-mo as a sort of thing. But it is just...
I don't agree with it, but I do understand it. It's like Octopussy has enough set pieces, it has enough characters, and it has enough stuff that I like in it that I'm on the like side of it, but I do like like it is my least watched James Bond movie because I don't really have an interest of watching it most of the time. When I do, I'm like, oh, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
But there is obviously the circus scene at the end where James Bond is dressed as a clown, and
which is just a metaphor for the entire sort of latter half of the Roger Moore era in one image.
And that's weird that that's the climax of the film. And then afterwards they have like one of those free fall stunts that it looks incredible, and it kind of is incredible. Like just the shot itself of the person being thrown out of the plane, and then like, holy shit, that is actually a person being thrown out of a plane. And that, I mean, I feel like that part should have been the climax instead of this, because that is, I don't know. It is structurally a very weird movie, and there's enough that I would understand why people don't like it, but I am on the end where there's enough that I do like it.
That's fair enough. I it also has. I'm just gonna get this out for here very quickly. It has a stupid fucking title. I'm sorry, it's
Yes, absolutely.
it's like I understand that obviously it's the title that Ian Fleming gave it, but I recognise that Mr. Fleming's made a decision. It's a stupid ass decision, and we're moving on to number 4, which is For Your Eyes Only, which is just yeah, it's sort of like Your Eyes Only. I don't have a
Okay.
problem with it. It is
Mm-hmm.
just it's and I understand that they were sort of trying things out with the Bond formula. It just
Mm-hmm.
does not work at any point in this film. It is
Yeah.
slow and it's sort of small paced, and it's like, okay, so basically your plot is we are looking for like 1 or 2 nuclear missiles in the Adriatic. Okay. Oh, and it's basically rival gangs of criminals doing it. Ah. Oh, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
revenge subplot. Okay. Oh, and by the way, the first 10 minutes of it is Bond basically visiting his wife's grave, which, again, sort of gets to our whole, what exactly, is the deal with, is Bond,
Yeah.
is this, connected to Her Majesty's Secret Service, whatever. And then proceeds to be basically loony fucking tunes for 10 minutes with absolutely not Blofeld. And it's just it's there is a good film in here. There is like the structure of a good film. There is Bond. Perhaps I don't know. You in another world. This is Bond. We could do this. This is set post Her Majesty Service. Bond is basically mentally recovering from the loss of his wife, and has been sent on secondment to the Adriatic to basically get out of the UK, and it's here that he starts to there is a good film in here. It ain't this one.
Yeah.
Number 3, A View to a Kill, which is just the end of the Roger Moore, the sort of the Roger Moore period, everything wrong with the Roger Moore era in one film, apart from possibly the film I'm gonna. It is a tired, unhappy mess of a film, and it's just like no, you've wasted Christopher Walken, you've wasted Grace Jones, you've wasted probably one of the best Bond themes we're ever gonna have, courtesy of Duran Duran. It's just sort of dumped into this cesspool of a film. Like some sort of golden life preserver to try and keep this film afloat. It's a slog, and it takes too long to get where it wants to go. It doesn't use what it's got really correctly. Its Bond girl is basically you can cut her out the story and it makes no fucking difference. And it's just Roger Moore like in half of this film just frankly just looks like he's half of the looks like he's just sort of looking towards the door and going, this is it, now I can get out and go and actually do something else, because it's just it's a retirement plan of a movie.
I have so much work with you and stuff I need to get done.
Oh, yeah, and number 2 is Diamonds Forever.
Yep.
Which is just, first off, it comes after On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which, as you said quite correctly, is basically, the Bond as a person done right. This very emotionally searing piece of cinema. And it is a piece of cinema, probably the closest before the sort of the Brosnan era that Bond actually got to, a film rather than a James Bond film, actual cinema. And then we come back to this, and it's just, it's tired, and it's the start of that slide into the Roger Moore era where basically, everything's campy and everything's played for sort of, a wry wink and a smile, and it just and the villains are bad. The whole thing feels it feels basically like James Bond the Las Vegas show. You haven't really got the budget to do anything particularly expensive, so guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna go park, James, we're gonna go put you on the stage at Vegas, and we're gonna get a washed up I don't know, a washed up musical star to be a washed up, theatre star to be your villain, and James, we're gonna put on a show at Vegas, and you'll be the star, and it's just like, oh my god,
Yeah.
easily the worst Connery film by a considerable distance. Boring
Yeah.
Bond girl,
You
boring.
Only Live Twice has its problems, but it also has its really good stuff.
Yeah, like we talked about but and obviously we talked about Thunderball being too long. Give me another half an hour of Thunderball over watching this again.
I
Genuinely,
don't know about that, but
I don't care if it just cuts to a fucking Jack Cousteau at fucking episode at one point. I will watch another. I will watch a 3-hour cut of Thunderball to not watch this film ever again. My number one is Golden
Okay.
Gun. It's just like it is. It is this film that feels like it has ideas, and it has no idea what to do with any of them.
Yep.
You've got Christopher Lee, which I know we've talked about Christopher Lee now ad nauseum, but you do not waste Christopher Lee. You do not make this man anything other than what he was, which is a master of a master of the very of body language, and a master of basically dramatic acting, and you don't waste all these elements. You don't waste Thailand as a location, and you don't waste this excellent pioneering stunt on this carcass,
car chase.
on
There's
this
nothing of a car chase
there's
where,
nothing of a car-
Scaramanga and Knick-Knack just decide to bail in their 70s car.
it's,
And then,
yeah.
there just happens to be this corkscrew thing.
It's just like, let's go through the corkscrew. Okay, fine. And it just feels like everything wrong. You want to get like a tick list of what not to do in a James Bond film. It's this film. It is there are bad Bond films. This is the worst. I genuinely it is. And we've remade Casino Royale. Why not go back and do this again? Let's start the new Bond era off by having I don't know our new Bond go up against an assassin who dealt with I don't know. Let's just get rid of Daniel Craig's Bond. Obviously, let's say he's killed by this assassin, and let's introduce the new Bond against this villain. And you go, right, there we go. Let's remake Ram with the Golden Gun for the 21st century, because Christ Almighty, this genuinely is the worst Bond.
Sounds like as good as idea as any.
Yeah, certainly more
the
ideas.
The only thing I'll say, I considered For Your Eyes Only. It is the Bond movie I have tried hardest to like, and I just can't get there.
Yeah.
It just gets to the mountain climbing climax, and it's just like, it takes so long. I get what it's like. The main film outside of the Looney Tunes opening is trying to be an extended chase film where Bond is constantly out of his element.
Yeah.
Either he doesn't have a gun and he's being chased by people with guns, or he is being physically overcome, or he is in this sub that is completely not equipped to handle attacking people, or he is mountain climbing, and if they catch him they can just toss him off. Like, I get it doesn't get there, and the villains aren't interesting enough, and everything just, it is trying too hard to be a movie and not hard enough to be a Bond movie. So I mean, that's all I gotta add.
No, I agree.
Man with Golden Gun, absolutely awful.
Oh god, yeah. Right, so that is the worst of Bond. Fortunately, so tomorrow will obviously bring the end of our Bond adventure. And we will talk about the best that Bond has to offer tomorrow. So we will see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.